credit, so I did tell her it's beautiful. It's high 80s every day now.
Oh.
And believe it or not, the humidity is very low. It's been beautiful. Gorgeous.
No, we'll take
But I
some.
guess you're playing in New York, though, too.
Yes, it's nice.
And pretty much no cart path, right? Just play as normal?
That's correct.
That's nice.
Yes, it is. All right, we'll wait for Ben. Call the order, Story County Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors meeting. I am Chet Burton, Chairman.
Ron Filmer, CEO.
Joe Trapani, Vice Chair.
Jeff Haslam.
Peter Johnson.
And we have Mark Nadeau as a guest.
Wanda King, treasurer.
I'm sorry, Wanda, I cut you off.
That's all right. No problem.
Not being in front of me, you were. Approval of minutes of April 27th, 2022.
I'll make that motion to approve those minutes.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Treasurer's report.
Which is this, I just enclosed the balance sheet for now.
I have a question on this, just on the liabilities, we have the SSI escrow. We got the 7,500?
Yeah.
We did.
It's a good job.
Well, the earlier version,
The earlier
we
version,
didn't get the current,
but we got $7,500.
yes.
We got, oh, okay. And the deferred revenue is, hey, Ben, deferred revenue is what? I just don't remember who that was from. It's probably
So
somebody.
they marked it down because the SSI we were still trying to get the other 25.
25, is that, oh, okay, okay, all right. That's right.
Thanks along with the first
Any other questions on the balance sheet? All right, moving on.
You want to skip the other?
Yes.
I don't think you care about.
Let's skip the other. Going to hold up Mark from a busy day.
Well, basically, I just wanted to come over and plant some seeds. The IDA has owned a piece of property next to mine for 40 years. I don't see it as a very viable, developable piece. It's riddled with wetness, of course. There's only 550 foot of frontage that goes along the Mineral Springs Road, and I'm referring to the piece that's across the way, of course, pretty much. When I did my development, I extended a couple of private roadways and driveways to the edge of the property to here. They are built to the 55 feet wide, which is required by the village street law of what they consider a street and everything. There is roughly about a 600 by 600 foot of property that could be developed and maintained across here if I was to extend these lines across. Now, I also know that my father, of course, put the pond in here. I have in my deed, if this property was ever to be developed, that New York Telephone would remove their line from that property. And I've hit it several times, and they have paid people dearly to come out and fix it several times. I mean, even when it was farmland, it got hit with the plow, and the plow had sliced through that. But that feeds all the West Fulton. I don't know, of course, other than that, I know that say it's a rural area and there's no reason why they should have to move it down on the roads. But it does, all those lines, as you know, cut through this property.
Diagonally instead of.
Yeah, diagonally, which take up the only part that really is usable and good. There's 23 acres, I believe, on one parcel and 23 on the other of the landlocked, which constitute about 46 acres total. They're on two separate deeds, is the way I understand it. One was landlocked, which is basically this upper portion, which really is so steep, it's useless.
Not even-
Useless property. I'm throwing out ideas of what could be done with the property. Right now, I don't know, it would have to probably go through a full seeker, I'm assuming. And I don't know if that's been done on the property.
Not much has been done at all with it, Mark, at this point.
Even for IDA to say that it is an available lot for development, that,
We've actually we haven't looked at it at all. Some folks who've been interested inquired about it, they saw it on a map, and then they came here. You know, that was it.
Mhm.
So it really hasn't been, it just hasn't been.
I'd like the county to give it to me. I'd put it back on the tax rolls, and then I could play and drain that piece of property and make it viable for development.
What is our procedure for letting land
You know,
go?
I'd have to, anything I say, I have to review, of course, with Joe, the attorney. But I know the first thing we probably have to do is get an appraisal, just because we're a public entity.
Mhm.
And then depending on how far we have to go with it, you might have to put an RFP out of some sort or just request. And then presumably Mark and whoever could respond. And then you vote. I mean, then you just make a decision. Well, we do have to send it to the state controller's office, the purchase price or whatever it will be, for their approval. And we've done that before, 90-day notice. And if they don't answer, you're okay. If they do answer, obviously you answer any questions they have. It's just a procedure at this point. It wouldn't stop anything necessarily. Just that's the sequence. So I guess the first thing to do is get an appraisal and see what it came out as. A couple guys around here do appraisals, I get, that I'm thinking of. You pay for that. And then we have to decide, the board have to decide on. I think you'd have to go to an request for proposal, but I'm not sure. I don't know, Jeff, any more than that, but.
Well, didn't we go sort of through this process with that Sharon property? That wound up going?
Yes, we advertise for X days and, et cetera.
Right.
And then, obviously, if Mark's interested, he'd be one of the ones that responded, and maybe nobody else would, maybe somebody would, I don't know.
Yep.
Then you'd analyze the proposal. I mean, you would not only include price, but you'd obviously include, what he's gonna do with it.
Yep.
What was the intention? On this side of the road, it's always been job, but if it ever becomes developed. That side of the road, Mark is right, as far as landscape, obviously, we can all see it. Anyway, that's the sequence.
Ron, wasn't that company that was looking to do the silos at the waste,
The bio.
Yeah, the biodegradable stuff at the college, weren't they looking at that?
They weren't looking at that side.
Okay.
This side, yes.
You're referring to Chiobe,
I think so, yeah, right?
Yes.
Industry Lewis Farrell.
Yes, Lewis, yeah.
Have you seen their latest website? Where they show all the solar panels over through here and the biodigestion up by the farm with the layout and everything. New York State Greenhouse.com, I believe it's on. They had a drone fly over the valley here, and they've done an extensive layout. They do have an investors section also up on it. I was led to believe that they had the money they needed to move forward, but I've heard that everything from the last 7 years. When I talk to Marion and stuff, it's pretty tight lipped of just what is going on with that.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're pursuing.
Yeah, because they have to come up with a certain
Yeah,
percentage, right?
yeah.
To get the rest of the funding, which I believe is a very viable project. I would think they would be able to come up with it and everything. But you're right, I know they didn't have any interest on this side of the road, it was all on that side. Of course, I had some concerns about the biodigestion, only because of smells and everything, if we're gonna be trucking manure and everything in. I mean, I've made a substantial investment in Scary County to be downwind of that. There are certain days I get it from the college now, as the whole village of Cobleskill gets, which we were sold that it wasn't gonna smell. It goes to operation of the plant and of course the temperatures that they operate at and everything. Because I have been to visit other ones and they can be operated properly, like everything. It's usually human air.
You're right, Mark. I went to one, I think it was KU, it was an older one, but at that day, it didn't smell, because it wasn't contained, but, I guess it's the operating air,
Yeah,
operation of it. But yeah,
because one of the hardest things of development, I mean, we all talk about it in Scary County, but let's face it, I mean, there's not that much development going on. There, for any outside builders that come in this area, when I looked at the Pollard Farm years ago, I mean, you had to do 8 to 12 houses a year to keep a minimum, and I basically have kept that, about 30 people employed for the past 35 years. By doing development. To continue that further, that's one reason why I'm looking at this. I have my son in place as a succession plan. I myself, of course, am the same age as you. I'm ready to retire, and I'm saying, why do I want to put any more money into Schoharie County when, over the past years, the president has been a very adversarial relationship by our local boards because of all the requirements that they require you to do it. Even when I did Edgewood Estates and they put so many restrictions on it, and then when I told them back then, it was like, well, I says, now you've raised the price to $50,000 a building lot. How many of them do you want? Back then the average building lot was going between 20 and 25,000. Today, there's not a lot of village lots left within the village for sale. Now, maybe Matt Loader's gonna do something with this property up in there. I know they've got some major problems because of the storm water coming off the hill, and it hits the railroad tracks there, and of course, it floods out the Bank of Richmondville and everything else. But the railroad doesn't wanna upgrade that culvert pipe, and of course, for a contractor to pay for that, because usually they want the contractor to pay for everything. Makes it a very difficult thing. I mean, even with the roadway, I put in 1,800 linear feet of roadway to spec, and the villages don't even build their roadways to spec, or anybody in the area. I mean, you're talking a foot of crusher run, you're talking the fabric underneath, you're talking a 5-foot snow shelf, you're talking 5-foot wide sidewalks, 1,800 linear feet of it. I mean, I even pay for the street lighting there, that they don't pick that up in taxes anymore. That's a separate buildable item to the contractor. All those things weigh pretty heavy when you got a $2 million investment just in the roadway and the infrastructure itself, putting the water and sewer lines in. Of course, if I couldn't do that stuff myself, there's no way that anybody would be here doing that. And I think you can see that. You don't see outside builders coming in here because the market is just not there. Is there a market there? There is. We've been turning people away every year, and my idea was basically just to build 2 4-plexes a year, which averages anywhere from the 4 units to the 8 units a year, so 4 to 6, and we've progressively moved those people in from out of the area over that period of time. But again, I've been 15 years doing that. The impact this area can handle, unless there's something coming in that we all don't know about with a lot of jobs. That's why the college thing would be perfect. They're talking 188 jobs now on this new website of high-paying jobs. And I'm thinking, well, geez, do I bite off more and go for more? Like I say, I'm still turning people away because we were losing families for that type of lifestyle. We're getting older. People want to be taken care of. Everything is done. It's maintenance-free living there for people, which has really helped. But I've been surprised at how many young people, professional people, that don't want to maintain their place and mow the lawn. We've got to look at cutting our land up better than the 5 acres, of course. And most of them will just, as you know, buy a farm and, we got to go 100 feet wide and 200 feet back. That's what all the developers do, but that's poor land use. You've got to go to more of a medium density scenario on your land. We wanted to keep a very rural country living, was one reason why you see a lot of green space there. I mean, we've got the farm animals there. We got a couple of miniature donkeys and chickens, and people give donations for the eggs and stuff. And there's a couple of pygmy goats there. That really has brought a lot of the population in. Oh, grandma, you gotta live there, and it gives them a place to walk their kids to. We now have a community center available with 3 pieces of exercise equipment, and it's got a 4 seasons greenhouse on. I'm doing aquaculture in there, aquaponics with the fish. We're raising our own tilapia that if somebody wants supper tonight, you can pick out, your fish and do. We've got a lot of people in the raised garden areas. We're serving about 50 to 60 meals a month because we have a community dinner. It has brought that sense of community back, where you want to know your neighbor, you sit and have a meal with them, they talk to one another, which has worked out very well. Like I say, I think that trend you're going to see continue because, as you know, even down south, a lot of the areas have gone into gated communities and they all make them pretty much internal with everything to keep that sustainability. You have to have some amenities and features there for people to want to walk and be part of that community. Of like and similar, which again, it's more or less proven itself all over. It was a fairly new concept for Schoharie County. It's still the only townhouse community in Schoharie County. And I can see the projection of the growth. Like I say, every year we're turning people away only because we don't have the product, which is a good problem to have. Like I say, do I want to keep doing it and stuff? Of course, my wife tells me to stop, but my father worked until he was 89. That's when he dug his last pond, So, I'd like to be able to continue. I see the potential there. I see what One Key wanted to present on the other side, Maxim Properties. I've got all their plans. They're trying to sell it now at this point. The numbers just don't work. They had to put in 1,500 literally feet of a driveway before they could even start their first house. And again, then, like I say, when you work the numbers to try and do it, there's just no money to be made. And it costs so much to develop the land. It's not like you can go in 30 feet off the road and plop your first one in and sell it. You know what I mean? And then go to the next one. Just the engineering cost alone on my project back then was over $100,000. I mean, to invest that on top of the price of the land and everything, you're looking that you got to have at least $500,000 in that. And that's one thing that, we talk about developing the Route 7 corridor. I was one of the main reasons that when I was mayor that I got caught in that scenario is, yes, you can have the water and sewer, no, you can't. And I've been here all my life, and when I saw that, it always got used as a leverage tool. Well, the good Lord gave us the water, and we should share that equally. So I pushed, Murray to take it all the way to the town line. That way it can never get used again. But I also told him, I says, you need to have your zoning ready. Because if growth is going to come, it's going to come in cycles. And of course, we lost Lowe's, and that was some of the reasons why we lost Lowe's, because they got caught in that battle of, yes, you can have it, no, you can't, yes, you can, no, you can't, unless you annex into the village and stuff. Again, that's a fight for another day with the 2 layers of the government on a local. You got the tail wagging the dog, and even at the county level, as you know, Cobleskill Village does give so much sales tax revenue back to the county. But unless they became a city, then they would keep all that, then the county would really be in sad shape. That isn't gonna happen, let's face it. But they do have to have the better controls. But out on Route 7, even if you put a store up and bought a piece of land or anything, you're looking at $1 million investment. There's no way this population that we have can support that on the mom and pop scale. That's why your other towns, I mean, yeah, you can buy an old building for 100,000, you know, you put maybe 100,000 into it, but the mom and pop have to work the store. Hey, if you got payroll and stuff, not gonna happen. Just not gonna happen. The numbers aren't there when you run the math and stuff. And that's one thing, when Leo and I talked several times, you know, him being an expert in numbers, I tried to tell him, I said, it doesn't matter what you do out that corridor, it's not gonna change. You have to solicit companies on good years that need to lose money. And then maybe in 4 or 5 years, you know, they'll be able to turn it around. Even Walmart, when it first came, they were supposed to have a target date. They figured 3 years before they would catch that. They were lucky enough that within a year and a half, they hit their numbers, quotas, and got into the black with the store because they were on a growth run and everything. That's one reason why Lowe's came here. If Lowe's would have been here, but Lowe's was pushed to do some things by our local boards and look at putting a secondary road down in the back to somebody else's property, and that was the straw on the camel's back that stopped them. But they would have brought 4 or 5 other businesses, and that's that cycle run. It's about every 20 years you see that. The housing industry with interest rates now going up. Building materials are up. Building materials should come back down a little. But in the last 2 years, it's added over $50,000 to the average 1,500 square foot house. And you hear the realtors telling you that, you know, properties are getting in bidding war of $30,000 to $50,000. I've heard some at $80,000 over it because somebody really wants something. But it's pushed all the prices of the real estate market almost out where your first time home buyer or your renter on the low end just can't afford to do it. I mean, the day of $500 a month rent is gone. Especially when I've got units that are paying $500-600 a month just in taxes. You know, last year, I think we paid $157,000 in local taxes and stuff. That's a hard pill to swallow. And then when you look at the rents that you have to charge for it on top of that to pay for the actual building and everything, it's a tough equation to do it. You know, people can make more money other places. So we're never going to really see that onslaught unless we do get an anchor store or a big business in here for that. Like I say, whether or not I do this project, I go back and forth. I've talked to you, you know, over the years about it and stuff. I did plan for it to go across. That property is very wet, as you know, Mineral Springs. It's got all red dogwood on it and stuff. But I do see the potential where that pond could be tripled in size to take care of all the stormwater runoff. And then really that water there could be a backup source for water for possibly the greenhouse or whatever, because it does have the thoroughfare that goes under I-88 through the ditch right down here. Because all that water does drain right down by the village office right now. I think they own that 1 acre of land.
Yeah, they got.
That's
yeah,
the little
that
square
Yeah, you're right. That little
in
cut
there.
right
That's kind of the spillway. And that's why I say that pond could be tripled in size. But again, somebody's gonna have to do a lot of engineering to say, well, if we put these impervious roof systems in there, and if we put roads in there and everything, you know, the SWEPS plan's gonna have to be done. You're looking at quite a bit of money there to invest in that. Now, to make that sellable land for a development, IDA, is it in the business to get it to that point so you have a sellable product? That's one way that, you know, those things, the long form EIF can be done. The mitigation of the stormwater could be done, because the land definitely has to be drilled to be buildable, has to be dried. You know, that's an investment, to me, they would have to make to have a shovel-ready type property. Zoning would probably have to change on it. I'm not sure what it's zoned right now, agricultural?
there.
Still?
It's not industrial, but it's commercial, I think. Or, I mean,
You see,
and,
Yeah, because I had to go through rezoning of that property, of course, because that was in the town. And then I put it through what we called an RPUD, a residential unit project development,
Gotcha.
to get the zoning change to go through with that. And again, I guess the town's working on a comprehensive plan right now. Does it go into the overall picture of what they're thinking? They're looking to spend some money on that. Do we want to be a bedroom community, and just service the Albany, Oneonta area and stuff? The people do that. I mean, a lot of my tenants do that now. They go each way, the professionals and stuff. I don't know what else that property would ever be used for. It's not level enough to put up a sizable building of any factory or anything. So I don't know if you take the connotation of industrial development. I don't see it. Out here I see it. Over here I see it. I just don't see it on that side of the road because, again, of the elevation and the contours. If you look at the topos of that, I mean, it's got 20 foot of height and like 50 feet. Which I've tamed some of those, of course, the way I've contoured. I try to build houses and units that fit to the contours of the land so we don't have to move a lot of excessive dirt in that regards. But there's a lot of work to be done on that property. Like I say, if I used it as my playground and just slowly did it and carved the roads out and stuff, I don't know if they can stop me from doing that or not. Putting ditches in and French drains and underground to drain it. I'm looking for a working relationship, whether the IDA may take the lead agency to get it to the point where it's a sellable, doable piece. An investor, there's no way he could develop that land, pay for all the engineering and all the excavation work to get it to put the first building up. It would just be astronomical to do that. Is basically my take on it. And again, I'm just trying to have a conversation and see. I can see where it can be done, and development could continue if, again, their comprehensive plan, if they want to see more housing across there. I don't know what else would ever go there.
Well, I think we have to go through the process at this point.
Well, I mean, I guess the first step was isn't probably too expensive at all. If there's anything else, it's not. It's to start with the appraisal and to keep it on our thoughts. It'll be done in a month or two, presumably. And in the meantime, we can keep thinking about it. And then that first step would be done. And it's good for probably at least 3 or 4 years. So I would vote that we at least take that first step. I'm just recommending, I guess, at this point. Get that out of the way, give a base for that, and see what the appraiser says. In the meantime, I can check with legal and see what other steps I have to take or don't have to take, as the idea goes. And keep discussing it.
Okay. Can I have a motion for appraisal? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we'll move forward with that and start investigating the other process and see where we end up, Mark.
And I appreciate anything, like I say, I don't know when seeker really kicks in on that. Again, that would bring merit to a builder that's buying it, of course, if that was done.
Yeah, I can check on that too. I don't know what exactly spot secret would be. It seems to me like it wouldn't be until you do something.
Yeah, you wouldn't do seeker until you actually apply for a project typically. I mean, so the other avenue would be to hold on the appraisal, determine what we're gonna do with the old business administration, determine if we wanna make the site shovel ready or look at potential making it shovel ready, and then go out for RFP and bid. We can get an appraisal, but if we did an appraisal and then we decide we wanna make it shovel ready, then the appraisal's probably only good for a year, to be honest with you. I don't think value in 3 years from now. The economy changes too quickly.
Yes,
Yeah.
see, and I have that same theory with comprehensive plans.
I agree.
They say every 5 years you're supposed to change it, but the economy's changing every 3 years.
Right, right.
Every 2 years it's changing,
Right.
depending, you know.
Yeah, unless you're doing it with a, 5 to 10 year forward look, and comprehensive plans are tough too.
What's involved in getting it shoveled, determine whether you can get it shoveled ready? I mean, in other words, if that's just as much money or more money than an appraisal.
It would be more money for sure, but the property would be worth more money if you go through the shovel ready process.
Yeah, if you
Try
do
to
it.
sell it.
I'm talking about to determine whether it's,
It is shovel ready, I mean,
Is that a big
it
deal?
sounds like wetlands is probably the first thing you want to look at. I mean, if there's really that much wetlands, I don't know. I know nothing about what it is, right? So we'd have to look at, is it state wetlands, is Army Corps engineer wetlands, can you actually drain the property and make it developable? You would probably know better than us at this point.
It doesn't qualify for any of those that I know of. The only thing the Army Corps of Engineer did was the very gut, of course, over here by Interneting down through, that they had a problem with when Bruno started filling that in. Then the Army came in, because that was all a drainage.
We
up for
actually, we
I-88.
had one on this side too, Mark, when ESG was moving faster than, I hope they moved faster than they actually did, so now that's not valid either, but at the time, 3 years ago, we did a little on this side,
Mhm.
and there's a little corner here and there
Yeah.
that they claimed was wetlands.
We would need to look at the zoning.
But it didn't do it for us,
determine the zoning.
so.
Right, we need to look at the zoning, determine the zoning is set up for commercial industrial use, or if it's set up for, residential development. You probably did an archaeological study as part of yours, so I don't know if that's an issue in this area or not.
Was that ever done on that land?
At my time, I don't think.
See, I don't know how they could claim that as industrial development land if that stuff wasn't.
I mean, well, it was one of those things that
Done.
Mark, when before my time, it just got its own eye. know,
Yes, I understand that.
And then it sits there.
And that's back in the 80s, of course,
Yeah.
early 80s, where zoning really started coming
And
in.
the village has changed since then, so it's no longer, I gotta say,
They find an arrowhead somewhere along the lines, and then all of a sudden, everything changes, right?
Well, it's
So,
usually up to the property owner to change zone,
Yeah,
not the village.
right, so I mean,
as
so,
usual.
I'm sorry. On that, but
so I think the first step would be like, let's figure out if we actually have any due diligence on the property from however the IDA acquired it, whenever they acquired it. And get some information together, determine what we want to do with it, and either roll out an appraisal or try to get some background information done.
well, and you're right, it all relates to value. If that was shovel ready and all that was done and everything, usually, and if it's approved for a development project, it's usually worth about $10,000 to $15,000 a door.
The door.
Is how they, in the realty world, how they appraise and look at those
I have no idea
things.
what.
It depends at what phase that property
Right,
is at
sure,
to give it its valuation, like you're saying.
right, yeah, then you got all the
In that,
density.
I mean, let's face it, raw land today, I don't know, it's whatever the auction will bring, and if it's a lot of it, like I say, that one parcel that was landlocked is not good for anything.
Yeah,
But you're gonna wanna get it on the tax rolls, cause you're not gonna wanna keep it landlocked. You wanna make somebody responsible for all of that, and maybe that's a gimme. But then if you look at the usable acreage, and that's what I was trying to convey to you, of what is really there and usable, you won't know until you do those studies.
right, exactly.
Because some of those stormwater ponds, the one I did over here is 80 feet wide and 400 foot long. Okay, and the criteria is it has to take a 7-inch rainfall within a 24-hour period. Of course, when Irene went through, that was an 11-inch rainfall. And of course, it far surpassed that, and we had no flooding whatsoever, of course. But then you still got the mitigation down the road too,
Sure, right.
of where it enters into your creeks and everything like that. That's why I don't see a heavy, it's not like you're gonna put a building of 10 acres of flat roof and then drain it off, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you let out some sort of blue water.
So you gotta talk like a medium to low density impact on there to begin with, to make that land usable for something, because you've already got all that water coming down there already, and now you're gonna redirect it. That's why I say the thing I see is probably that pond's gonna have to be tripled in size, which there's a place to do that. You know, now whether or not you can incorporate that, like I say, to put piping in, pipe it under the road, and then possibly the greenhouse at the college could use that later on as a dump supply of water that they need to grow their vegetables and stuff. I mean, that's another thing. They have a lot of land over there too, and they could build one big pond. I didn't see that on their plans. And I also didn't see where they showed any irrigation of pumping out of the creek to use that water, you know, for that. But that greenhouse is gonna need water. Now, they're not gonna pay for village water and sewer to produce those vegetables because it would price them out of the market. That's what they're looking to do, is produce food at the lowest impact in a model situation, of course, that makes that industry separate from somebody privately trying to do it. You know, because they'll have to pay for that stuff somehow. And I guess that's why they're doing the solar and everything else, so they get the electricity to run it and everything else. Like I say, I don't know if that's worth having a conversation with them.
Bruce has been calling me every couple, 3 weeks now on his updates. So it wouldn't take much to have a conversation. Even with you, Mark, actually, you know.
I've tried to reach out to them, they sent me investor packages and stuff, but, because I says, you know, I can do the cost of all your renovation of leveling the earth for cost. I says, if you put it out for RFP, it's 3 times the price. You know, how can I help you as a local businessman get your project done? You know, and I feel that
Come up with $80 million.
I already have.
For his investment.
Well, I already have got that in Schoharie County. Do I want to go any deeper? All my eggs are in one basket. You know, I've made that commitment here, and that's there. That's why I say this land here really could become my playground. And if the IDA wants to just give it to me and I'll develop it as possible, there's no real value in that land because of the work that's going to take to get it to that point. And again, the government isn't in that business to be a developer. Right now, they should take Forest Road and take all that dirt off Artie's property and put it on the other side for United Realty, so that's level on both sides. If you want growth, and keep that growth close to the main factors. Because then they could develop, you know, that nice parcel there by the Colonial Motel, and Artie's land could be developed. Right now, it's so hilly and everything. I mean, you got $100,000 worth of earthwork in there easily.
Would an appraisal on that property take all of that, wouldn't an appraisal on that property take all of that into consideration? In other words, what it would take to get it shovel ready and environmental and all of that? Wouldn't getting an appraisal say, okay, this property's worth 2 cents. Why? Because blah, 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 of all of these things that you have to do to make it shovel ready for any kind of building or any kind of commercial or residential.
You could get an as is and an as improved appraisal that would do that.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe that should be.
That mean, yeah, so in other words, that would satisfy your issue. Would it?
Yeah,
Could
I
you
mean,
get that in the appraisal and then, and we don't want to be in a real estate business, right? I don't think the IDA wants to be in a real estate business. We don't want this property to try to dump it for how many years, so. Anyway.
But maybe goes. They're seeking economic development. Maybe they want to play a role in it to help get a site shovel ready. Again, I'm just throwing out ideas to see how we can,
Well,
how we can't keep development going and prosperity.
I mean, that's an ongoing
Peter,
conversation right now about the, I don't want to get off this land, but.
Yeah, that's another issue.
Correct, I know that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you wanna do that road, you want me to get prices for both?
I mean, I want it
And we can
to,
also maybe check with an engineering firm and
yeah, I think we should,
I mean, we have
Discuss
periodically,
what
but
our
the numbers are so
options
old
are.
that I could throw out, yeah, it cost me $300,000 to get this site ready one year. It was 6, 8, 10 years ago. And, that was the price I got just to get it, like the archaeological done, the EIS done, blah, blah, blah. But Jesus, that price is, I don't know where it is.
No, exactly. Well, especially at $7 a gallon of diesel. I can tell you where it's at, but again, that's what I do.
$7.
You know.
found some cheap diesel.
Mhm.
You found some cheap diesel at $7.
Wow.
Jeez.
Off-road.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not cheap.
That's terrible.
Not when you start that tractor, or that bulldozer and it's going gallon.
Folks on the dairy farms.
Yeah. No, I know. I got a trucker friend too. He just said, "Oh man, it cost me $1,500 to fill my truck."
It's crazy.
Yeah. I know the feeling. Again, I'm just here looking for solutions for the area and
Maybe
keep.
Mark starts up the conversation with his presentation here and we start looking at it more.
Your view is a good catalyst for us to do something. I think we just need to determine.
Yeah, even if I don't do it, like you say, you gotta put it out for RFP. I mean, the biggest problem they're gonna have is, I already have the water and sewer lines over there, but I have it 50 foot short of the property line. That 50 foot is gonna be very expensive for somebody, because otherwise they gotta go down to the road and pull all that in.
Sure.
Yeah, that's just stacking the deck
Potentially.
in my favor, that's all.
Right, if they need water and sewer, right, it depends on what type of user. You spoke about the potential for agriculture, maybe hoop houses, right, if they irrigate certain ways. So they have the pond, they could be a less water intensive business with no real sewage issues. So it just depends on the user. I guess for me personally, I don't know enough about the property, what the other opportunities are to do anything, and we've got other decisions we need to make as a board
Mhm.
about.
Well, I think that's why your direction with the appraiser, you do have to look at it two-pronged.
Yeah.
To really get a true valuation,
Yeah,
because you're not in the land development business.
Right.
And how far do we wanna take it to make it viable, just possibly sell it for the best price for the public.
yeah, agreed,
On that, cause
agreed.
right now, we're all land like that at auction, what's it go for, $800 an acre? $1,000 an acre? I mean, the auction usually tells you, what some of that garbage land is worth. It's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Sure.
I would just like to see it back on the tax rolls and stuff, and that's why I say, really, if they gave it to me, I'd put it back on the tax rolls.
Yep.
But you're also giving me 48 acres that maybe 4 of it's buildable to do something with.
Right.
That's the other question I have to ask
That's the piece
myself.
we gotta figure out. We could probably do a lot of our own homework on what what it would cost to get a SWIP done.
Yeah, because the more you get done, of course, the more value it does bring to it.
Sure.
Like you said, because any developer is going to have to go through those hoops anyways.
Right.
Well, and you can almost see, and that's why I brought you a map that kind of showed my development, so you could kind of see what we could take that's done on here and just place it there. So you can almost see it's not going to be a lot of housing. It might put the third unit, in this row. It might put a third unit in this row. Up in here, it starts getting too steep. So I don't know that would even happen. So you're only talking maybe 4 buildings at 32 units, 4 in each building is what's in those units there. And that's why I kind of brought that as a perspective for you, to see the size and everything about what would fit across there. We'd be looking at 32 more housing units and stuff. And right now, like I say, those usually end up being around $450 more per month per unit. So you can see the tax implication of what that would add also in that. I mean, that's what I tell the mayor all the time. I says, I get no services. You haven't even taken the road over, but yet I'm giving you this. So you should be able to keep our taxes with no hike every year, because you're getting all that money in your budget. Right? Amortize out the cost of what it costs. They're not giving me any services. That's the problem I had with Linda. I says, you own those water and sewer lines as soon as you start billing me. Oh, no, we don't own them until we take the road over. How does that work? You're billing me for it, and you're billing me, all those people are paying for it.
But you have to maintain them? You maintain the sewer and water?
That's what she's telling me. I said,
I'm surprised.
right now, they charge me $25 to come and read a meter every time somebody moves in and out. I said, wait a minute, that's in their job description, meter readers.
Right.
It's a drive-by with electronic device, and you're hitting me for 25 on top of paying the water and sewer. That's in your overhead costs. I'll leave this with you guys.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for stopping.
I appreciate your time and listening. If you have any questions, Ron, you know. Oh, yellow.
Yes, I do.
So, glad to talk to any of you. If ever you want to stop up or drive through, please
Yes, not a
Welcome.
bad thing. I haven't been up there. in a
go
while.
through. A lot of people are amazed because once they get up there and see it, I mean, it's like a village within itself. I'm not gonna kid you. I mean, it's been quite an undertaking for one individual. I always thought it was too big a project, but I couldn't get any investors to
Yeah, you kept going. Give you credit.
come in on it and everything. And then the area needed it, and it still needs it. There's room for more.
I will say, yes, you do have a waiting list. I've been told. Outside, it's just, not just from you, but others.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so the demand is there.
we're very fortunate, like I say, that it's worked out that way. And so hopefully it'll continue for another generation. But again,
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it. Enjoy this nice day.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
So I guess I'll get some prices.
Yeah.
Maybe just email y'all or whatever.
Yeah, it's a
Where
nice,
exactly is that land? I know I had pictures there, but where exactly is it? To the east side of where he's
No,
building?
it's right across from our bill. Yeah, it's the
West side,
the
west
west
side,
side of his
yeah.
project. Yes, the west side of his project, and right across the street from us on the other side of Middle Spring Road.
On the balance sheet, which, is it reflected in any of these properties where it says fixed assets? We have land and building and miscellaneous. This is obviously, it includes this building, but then there's Grove Street. Is that Grove Street? Is that,
That's a village street that it's a separate situation.
all right, so I was just curious how we're carrying it.
That's a good question.
Well, you know what? You know, it is a good question because it's been so many years. We haven't had an appraisal since I've been here on that land. We had an appraisal on this land, on this side once.
Uh-huh.
And it was, God, I'd have to look it up. I still have it to find.
Probably ask the accountant for just a detail of the
Yeah.
one.
That would be booked. That's how it's booked.
Right.
These days,
Is
are you
it
supposed to
separate
do
deed or is it all together? with
cost
some
or
other property?
value?
I think it's all
Didn't
together.
they just change
I
that?
mean, well, I don't know what the accountant's was about. I would bet you.
Usually, it's what, that's what I remember.
They took, I think
Especially
they
on
probably
land,
took the
because you can't
farm
appreciate
whole,
it
which
anyways.
was the farm, and they didn't split the street.
to be quite honestly, it's probably
That's
hardly
probably
anything.
miscellaneous in land.
If it goes back, 50 years here, so I
Yeah.
bet there's hardly any value at
I
all
was
on
just
that,
curious what it was. All right.
on that property.
Yeah, on the books anyway.
Excuse me?
Yeah, on the
On the
book.
book,
Yeah, on the book.
I mean, we've been here since 1990, 91, and it was already bought by then.
Yep.
Maybe not too long before that, but that's 30 years in itself.
Well, then the depreciation schedule will certainly show the value, that it was at that time. Yep.
And that's so long ago, who knows?
I'm sure the state will tell us what we can and can't do with that.
Well, it seems like we went through that though. It was one of the sharing properties that we were.
Yeah, we
looking
did,
at.
and it wasn't, I mean, as long as it's not some big Gary's thing, or, some kind of conflict of interest, or whatever, we gotta, if it was for housing, we'd be saying, all right, we're giving the land away, we're an industrial, job creating entity, and it's not. But on the other, so that would be a negative. On the other hand, if you're doing it for use of land, because what else are you gonna use it for?
Right.
And it provides housing for the businesses, there is a value there as well. I know when we did that MRV study here, the one with the, site development,
Right.
and by the way, we're in discussions with Zeke and Warner, the town of Cobblestone, a couple other supervisors, Alicia. on who may play a lead role in developing land and owning a park. It's one way to gain money, like owning on it, Otsego County, they own 3 properties, IDA owns 3, and it generates income for them. It's just like our Beekman. So you can't own these things, but obviously you can't, to get it done. And anyway, long story, MRV Group had a building here. I'm not doing it justice, but it's, it's in here, and it was at least 80,000 square feet, I believe. I got it upstairs.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
So, yes, they did determine it was tough to do, but you could get a commercial building on there. One. And it had to be the right location.
And that was a pretty thorough analysis.
Yes, I mean, they had their
by
engineers.
People who really understood things.
They,
So,
and they were getting paid for it, and they put their engineers to work. Like they were out here. I mean, I don't know if they spent 3 weeks standing on our site. They didn't, but they still look at everything.
well, I wonder, and I could just ask Julie Pichetti, since the town of Colesville and MR, Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development District
Mhm.
paid for that study, the $50,000, we ought to be able to get a copy of their assessment of the 50 or 60 lots that they looked
I mean,
at.
I think I got it.
And-
upstairs.
and
I got
yeah.
it upstairs.
And of course, they began winnowing it down, and if this was one of the final 3, they should have some information that would be useful.
I mean, if I have it on the computer.
Yeah.
I'll flip it to everybody.
Okay. Yeah,
If it's a hard copy, it'll be a little more difficult, maybe Julie will have it, but
right.
I think, if I do have it, I'll flip it. I'll find out today or tomorrow. Maybe I'll give you a buzz figure on
Okay,
if I actually find
There
it.
has to be paperwork on it.
yeah,
It was a very nice study. I mean, and matter of fact, Warner, Julie, and I, and Alicia are meeting this afternoon at 1. Talk about, and I haven't got all the numbers, so I really haven't talked about it here yet. Is the IDA want to be lead, or is it going to be SEEK, or is it going to be some other LDC? That's the question now on these sites that they all study. I've asked Joe Scott a little bit about it. I asked Jody from Otsego. He's already went through it. But it's all preliminary data I have right now.
Yeah.
There's some good things that can happen from it, but there's liability into it.
sure.
And obviously cost.
Yeah, well, it's gonna cost somebody,
Something. Yes,
and,
It's not- and it's going to be an investment.
and we, and I think everybody knows that, but everybody's hoping it's gonna be the other guy that's gonna come up with the money.
Maybe we can blonde off with some ESG fund.
Right?
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, so it's an intriguing thing, but
Yeah.
it's not just by itself. The only thing that puts it by itself over there is the fact that it's rural. It is hard to develop.
Yeah.
That site's probably the worst.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
Yes, and of course, Mark wants only a small portion of it, but he's willing to take on the entire thing in order to get that small
I mean,
portion.
right. I mean, there's no way we need this tree line here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, nobody's gonna buy it,
Just for deer.
yeah.
Well, he has come up quite a bit in here. He's right on the line with some of
Yeah,
the
he-
building now.
He's utilized that
Putting
site
in-
pretty good. Yeah,
He's probably got, looks like duplexes up in there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them,
But
but
you're
he's,
right,
he's making some use of the land as much as
pretty close to
possible.
to that line.
So he's done an excellent job.
He has a nice product, right? But, it doesn't mean we shouldn't see what other opportunities are associated with the land.
That's why.
Maybe the college is interested in this,
Yeah.
part of, he's thinking they're interested in a water source already, maybe this fits the bill for some hoop houses and agricultural stuff for them. Particularly if the water's already there and they can irrigate in this direction and, who knows, I don't know enough about the land.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, what are you doing next week?
Like it, man.
You wanna take
Water
the-
boots?
Yeah, take the kids on a walk.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Maybe you should buy it.
No, thank you.
No?
I don't think so.
Just throw it out there.
All right,
Oh, Lord.
so we move on here.
Yeah. You got, we
No, I'm good.
can water here.
So we have two committee meetings. The audit committee is first.
All right, I'll move the approval of the September 21st, 2021 draft minutes.
Your second?
Committee.
Wanda, you.
Yeah,
I'll move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. We have, right. So, finance minutes, what are we at here?
the auditor selection, do we have to decide who's?
Yeah, there's a count, but you don't need, I don't know why it's in there.
That's
It's the audit, the audit committee, right.
We already did that, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm gonna color coordinate these next time, but,
all right.
yeah, just go to the auditor selection.
All right.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Auditor selection.
Well, the auditor firm, Engineer most are, is in the second year of their 5-year proposed contract with us. And the cost is, for this year, fiscal year, $6,500 for the IDA and $2,400 for the CRC. You know, he's standing by the cost that we analyzed last year with the RFP. So I would recommend that we keep going.
They just had factored in a small increase each
Yeah, I
year.
think, actually, Jeff, I think this one was flat
Oh,
last
okay.
year, and then they do,
And they,
yeah, then
Yep.
they do.
Yep.
Up a little bit.
Yep.
But yes, it's small, it's an increase, it's like 200 this year.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Any further discussion? And motion?
so,
All-
Okay.
Peter and Chet and one.
oh, that's right, that's water committee, all right.
I'll make a
Yeah,
motion
Sorry
to
about that.
do that for the next year.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Internal control assessment.
I copied and just had it included, it's there included in the package. This is basically our internal control, that's what we've done for several years now. I'd like to, unless somebody wants to add on something, we can keep it the same.
This is for the CRC.
Yeah,
But
I
it's the
think I
same
see
for
that,
the-
though. It should be, it's the same for the
Same
IDA.
exact, right? Okay.
Both of them be identical. It's identical.
Right.
Except for that hanging.
Any discussion on?
I mean, everything pretty much works. The auditor doesn't make any comment on it or any suggestions.
I mean, they had one comment last year, and we addressed that comment, and they basically withdrew that concern that they had.
Mhm.
We sent them some correspondence there, and, yeah,
I remember that. Yes.
yep.
All right, so do we have a motion to keep?
Approve as is, yeah.
Approve as is.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Governance committee.
Everyone's on this, the whole board, so.
Did we get any information on that? Was that circulated? Governance committee stuff?
No, the only thing I had, Joe, was I wrote on there's policies on their website. Maybe if we just approve the minutes first and I'll get right into that.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion, minutes are approved. Policy review and update.
Joe, basically, and this goes to Joe's comment, or at least lead in, I suppose. You should have a meeting at least once a year, if not twice a year, on the governance committee. I've been waiting and waiting for the new policy book to come in, new meaning updated. And most of the policies, Joe's looked at them all. What used to be Mike who was done it, and then Mike left the firm, so here we are. They're not wrapped up yet, and they're in process, so I don't have them. But I wanted to say that, at least, have this meeting, or have a little committee meeting. I point out, Joe, all the policies are on the website. You can look at, old, when the new package, so to speak, comes out, it'll be on a disc. And you'll be able to, be easier to run. But as of right today, I don't have them. The updated ones. I mean, I think since the last time we did it, there's a few other, maybe selection policy might have been updated. And maybe one other. So there's not much changed, which is, I guess, good news. But
Yeah.
But the whole slew of them, whatever number it is, 20 of them, are still on the website, and they won't be updated until we get the new disc, which I don't have them all on there.
Okay.
In fact, I don't even know if it's disc one anymore, but it'll be on the web, and I can flip it all to everybody. But
It's in the cloud.
Yeah.
you can't even use a disc if you use a computer.
Yeah, because the Villages Go area is doing a similar update. And it's been going on for 4 years. We just got a note from them saying they finally completed it, and now they're proofreading it. So God knows it'll be another 4 years before we get it.
It's a little discouraging in that sense, because I'm going through the same thing. It's been on my list for quite some time. And after we realized there's a little bit of change, but not much, it's been in process. And it's still in process.
Okay.
But anyway, long story short, it's getting, I think it is getting closer. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll have it here.
They're probably waiting for you to retire.
They don't have to deal around anymore.
Other?
None under other.
None other. Motion to adjourn,
I will make that motion.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, we are adjourned. All right, old business.
Well, let's start with the administration, the IDA under old business. You want me to keep going?
Yes, why don't we,
So what we have is, in front of us, and what we'd like the result to be is that we agree with this scenario. And if we do so, it would start going, small committee I'm working with at the county would start taking it to the official committees of the county government. And the economic development committee first, I guess, and then the finance committee, and then eventually to the full board, if it makes it out of each of those other committees. So what this small committee I'm working with at the county, which is Steve and Alicia, at the moment, would like to see if we concur with what's been written. So what's been written is the director's job responsibility, which will be attached to the copy of the strengthening of the IDA page. So, since I put that to you, I guess I open it up for any comments. If everybody concurs.
Well, Peter made a good comment about the $60,000. I think that's a very valid comment. Why do we have to be limited in funding this to what the county provides? So in other words, if the county provides whatever we have, what is it, 130,000, why don't we, out of our own funds, provide another 20, 25, whatever it might take? We're doing that now, paying you, so why don't we, up the ante? $60,000, if you look at this, I wouldn't take the job, look at all these responsibilities. So,
Appreciate
anyway, that's.
Well, I think, and, I mean, I'll let Jack go on after I lead in, I suppose. We talked about it a little bit, Jack and I. Said maybe we can offer a range and do exactly what you said. Maybe we contribute, whether it's $5,000 more, 10 or more, or 15, or, whatever it may be. And get it up to market if that's what the market bears.
It might depend upon, a person's experience
Right.
and, if they need to on-the-job training to come into the position. You might start them out lower and have them work up eventually to a higher position.
Sure.
So putting a range on it makes, I think, a lot of sense. You could start it out at 60 and whatever upper limit we want to put on it. Let's go with that.
In your discussions with Steve and Alicia, is 60 inclusive of fringe benefits?
No, that was
That's
base.
salary.
All right,
And
so,
the fringes,
so
Yeah.
you're looking at another 20 to 25,000 for fringe benefits. You're looking, if you have a part-time executive assistant, for want of a better term, you're up to $130,000. And that's if you stick at 60. So my feeling would be, say to the county, how about 150,000?
No harm in asking, right?
We could then supplement it, which we may have to do.
Yeah.
There's no harm in all they can do is say no, and at this stage, it's very informal and quiet and so on. The other thing is, I would be concerned about duration. When we set up SEEK, we said, okay, we've got enough money for 5 years and hopefully for even longer than that. I think we can't go out and say, we can only hire you for a year because we don't have funding beyond that. So I think the county's got to commit to that number for, I think, at least 3 years.
Any discussion on that? Ron?
there's been a brief discussion on that because I brought it up. And, if this gets at least preliminary say, okay, we like the idea, not necessarily a vote, but like the idea, then an MOU would have to be established, which would take place between now and the June meeting. And part of the MOU, of course, is lengthy service. Duration, yeah. And the comment's been made that we can put in 5 years, because I mentioned 5, three to 5, right? I mean, whatever, 10. He goes, but if the money's not there, it could end, end at any time. So it hasn't been discussed much further than that. So it's on the table, so to speak, but it's not been hammered out.
Well, if the money is not there, but if there's a contractual obligation, the money will be there. So,
Yeah.
right.
But we're the ones who will end up with a contractual obligation rather than the county.
Well, if the county
Well,
agrees to pay
$130,000.
$130,000, then that's a contractual obligation. If they agree to the duration, they're required to do that.
I agree with that, but getting the county
Yeah.
to do that also with no strings attached, because I think the IDA board has to be the one that determines how that money is spent. I mean, that's in the legislation.
I think it's in there, it was just for working capital, but I was,
Well, if they're designating a piece of that for a salary for the executive director, then I would disagree. If they're stipulating how the money needs to be, or at least that portion of the money needs to be spent. which,
Right, yeah, I mean, I guess when they say strengthen the IDA, right, and they want us to be more active, it involves a person,
so,
yeah.
you know, right, well, this proposal eliminates the seek oversight option that we've been discussing, right?
In a funny
The
kind of way,
executive director.
yeah, in a funny kind of way, it doesn't, because we could search and come up with nobody that's willing to do it for 60 or 70,000, in which case would seek, either seek or Ron would become the default option. You know, Ron continuing for a period of time, which I don't think he's willing to do. He really wants to retire and focus on RPC. So, you know, but I think it was a concern that I had too, which is that the county's got to be careful about this, because I'm not sure that they can impose anything on the IDA, because the IDA is an independent authority. So they give us $150,000, but then we're the ones who determine how it is spent.
I don't
If
think-
that's the way it's,
Right, I don't think it's imposed, but I think it's sort of unsaid.
well, but I mean, the contract goes both ways. We could say, yeah, we get $100,000, $150,000 to spend the way we like, and we want to spend it thusly. We want to spend 60, 75, whatever that amount is. That's how we want to spend it. So, I mean, then the county is free and we're free, I think, to do what we want. We can do
I mean,
that.
still gotta get, right, except, I agree with all that, except I guess it's kind of, it's done, I mean, you still gotta perform. And you're gonna say, what'd you do this year? You know,
What was the dollar amount in the seek proposal? 30?
30.
So for half the amount of money? So if we're getting 130 and spending 30?
But it was also 20% of the pilots though. So it was 30 plus.
Yeah.
That was the proposal.
I think we could address the 20% differently. Yeah, I would try to put that through the administrative piece of the.
Right. I agree, and that was one of the areas that was up for negotiation.
The other
They called it Joe Trapani, and then
The other piece of this, for me anyways, is when you read this, they start talking about economic development and grant opportunities. And, you know, I think that's a discussion we have to have about who we want to be when we grow up a little bit. Because that's not really what the purpose of the IDA has been to date. And I feel like there's a little bit of a public-private potential for a public-private competition for some of these dollars. And it starts to feel like a lot similar to what another county in the capital region went through recently and had a lot of heartburn over it.
Yeah.
You know, that's my biggest problem with this is like.
Well, in other words, like, are you talking about the grants that we've had in the past? Where we've had grants, we've made our own loans, but didn't we have grants that I sat here and looked at financials and business plans? And we spent that grant money. Is that troublesome? Is that what? Or is it the competition to get the grants? Is that?
Yeah, not the, I think it's more that, not the answer for Ben, but I think it's that, it's sort of saying, okay, we've got this private sector
does what?
group that's doing this. You could end up having the private sector group and the IDA competing for the same grant.
I should.
And
if you don't work together, it could certainly happen.
You
It
know,
happens in the housing group and it happens every, you know.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of efficiencies going back, right? Look, I don't know how far my vote counts, but I know I think there's a lot of efficiencies with the IDA moving more to a collaboration with SEEK and figuring out how to make that agreement, to your points, airtight, right? To a point where we're all comfortable, rather than hiring a separate director and doing things that seem to be in the same sphere of responsibility with both groups, right?
Yeah.
and trying to do them separately but together. I don't really know. I don't understand how that works in the long term or is efficient.
Only time will tell. I think the key is what you're suggesting, what Joe's suggesting, is that if there's really good collaboration between SEEK, the SEEK Board of Directors and the IDA Board of Directors, you probably go a long way to eliminating the competition. The competitive structure, which is kind of built into this. However, if the county is saying, well, we want to show some bang for our buck, then the director is going to have to actively go out and seek those kinds of things. So it seems to me that this is an area that requires a great deal more conversation to ensure that we don't want to get back into we don't want to create a competitive situation, but we want to encourage collaboration, and we want to encourage the county to devote some of its resources to economic development. It's just they have to be patient enough to allow that process to go forward without trying to stick their fingers in the pot all the time and saying, what have you done this year? And I'm not sure if that's ever possible, but I think that's the ideal situation.
Well, this is a committee at the county level. It may not even be passed.
Yeah.
So, anything you're just preliminary.
Well, so, for Ron coming back, are you meeting with him this afternoon? No, that's another meeting.
That's another one, right?
So, and I realized poor Steve has been sick with
Yeah, I know.
pneumonia, so,
Oh.
he may have written this when he was partly delirious.
Or at least
So-
getting treated.
But I think our position is, you gotta have at least a 3-year period. It's gotta be at least 150 with an increment for years, and we've gotta work on this. And third is that the board of the IDA is the one that determines how the allocation is spent. And then, stressing the collaborative nature of any kind of agreement with SEEK and the IDA need to march forward together on this thing.
Come on, say this funding for us, the 130,000. They're not telling. Well, and they go further. I guess they're down primary expense would be for.
Yeah.
So if they tell us that, then again, stipulate. Well,
Yeah, I told Steve a month and a half ago or something. I said, how much are you, because at that point, they weren't sure whether they would add a slot at the county. And a person would run the IDA. And I said, well, how much money are you thinking? And I said, he said $50,000. I said, Steve, you're not going to get anybody for $50,000. The guy could say, okay, I got an offer to run the IDA for $50,000, and I have an offer from Walmart to drive a truck for $80,000.
Right.
Which one am I going to take? And I don't have to file anything with if I take the truck driving job.
You don't need an MBA for the truck. driving.
That's great.
Well, you may, I don't know.
All you need is a commercial license. So anyway, I think in general, conceptually, the idea that the IDA might be able to use its balance sheet in the future to assist in economic development is great. That could grow its own balance sheet and financial assets and play a really active role. I'm totally in favor of that. And I think that as long as we're able to work out, a realistic arrangement with the other economic development institutions in Schoharie County, that this will be okay. But that's a big if.
Well, there certainly can be some coordination, you know, about who's going after what grants for what purpose and divvy it up that way. I mean, grants are a lot of responsibility and work and everything else,
Yeah.
so it could be done.
Oh, and a lot of this depends upon the IDA board. You know, if we say, hey, we're really in favor of private sector development, and we want to assist that as much as we can, then I think, things will probably move in the right direction. But I think the county's got to leave us, the IDA alone, to make those determinations. Quite frankly, there is an enormous amount of talent around the table. Ben and Joe showed that this morning in the discussion with Mark, knowledge of the intricacies of appraisals and so on and so forth. That's really one of the things that the county needs in helping to do this. Julie Piketty has a similar set of skills, combination of people, if that's what we do, or just seek. It's essential that the IDA board plays a very, very important role, a determinant role.
I agree. There are two entities, so two entities are handling, and we don't want any conflicts that, even somebody that would presume, an agency that would presume there's collusion or if one is a seek, it is controlling the IDA, which private shouldn't do for public. So we're living in a world where there are two entities. So I think if we could get an executive director that works, like you said, closely with SEEK and say, you guys are really great at an industrial, and we're my executive director has this skill set, and you do this and we'll do that, and we cooperate, and maybe the inefficiencies that you talked about could be overcome. Because as it is, there are two agencies, and we don't want any issues with audits, and then we're going to get to that thing again, and we don't want that.
Joe, I agree. I think, in fact, over the last 2 years, the relationship that Ron and Julie have developed on all of these things has been very good. It's kind of a model. It's very quiet, but very effective. For Sharon Springs and American Recycling, Julie handles one part of it, you handle another part of it, but it's worked very well and without any friction. So now we can't guarantee who this next person will be. They'll have the same ability to do that, but I think it's worth a try if we have these other protections in place.
Well, to some degree, we can control that, right? We all have certain skill sets and so on, and we know what they are, and we can approve or not approve direction.
Yeah.
In terms of what's going on. This document is going to be written to the County Board of Supervisors, and it's going to be written in such a way, politically, it'll be acceptable to them. Not one person, that's everybody that's looking at a lot of different varieties. So what comes out of this document is going to be a lot of vanilla. Right, in order to get the funding, what we're looking at is we need dollars to function. They're giving them to us. I think to a certain degree after that, we control our own destiny. And I'm sure that the County Board of Supervisors doesn't want to get into the nitty gritty of IDA and how they operate. They'll want to see what we are doing and has the revenue been spent to the benefit of the county taxpayers. So whatever we do is in coordination, we can say, well, this is what we've done. And then it could be, we've done it in coordination with SEEK and
Or
And- and
the college.
or the college or
Yeah.
whatever. So I think to specify in here in detail in terms of what we want may not be what is acceptable to them, and let the course of this thing go. I do think we should ask for some type of duration,
I think that's key.
you know, but as Ron says, the money's not there next year. Regardless, it's,
Yeah, I mean, we have roughly $900,000 in financial assets. You could run the place for 3 years, maybe 4. But there would be, less and less income as time went on. And hopefully this is gonna generate more income if you have a full-time director who's working to pursue these kinds of things, along with the other partners in the county, as this says.
Well, I think they're gonna do something though. I mean, the county, I was on the sales tax committee where we're looking at distributing the money differently, the sales tax collection. And, we're forwarding to, finance now, I guess, where we're proposing that 0.5% of the sales tax collection goes to economic development.
Oh, so that's still alive.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We-
All right.
The sales tax committee actually passed that. So, and what we said too, that this would be reviewed in 2 years on what we're doing. So, I mean, it appears, I mean, it still has a process, finance, and then the full board. But, it would appear to me that there would be at least a 2-year commitment, and hopefully it would continue beyond that. The reason we picked 2 years is just in case the sales tax collection, all of a sudden started taking a dive, that we would look at it, because currently we give the first 5 based on assessed value. And then what we propose that the next 3% will be based on population within the municipalities, villages and towns. And that additional 0.5% would be dedicated to economic development.
Right. Do you think that that's where a portion of this money is gonna come from?
Reading between the lines, and I'm not on those other committees, I would think so. I mean, right now, this year, we've budgeted a little over 17 million for sales tax. And our collections so far for the first 3 months, I think it was 4 yet, we were above budget so
Right.
far. And certainly last year, the county budget, I think, was a little over 16 million, and we got a little over 19. So, whether that income continues, that the sales tax collection will continue to be as robust as it has been, be determined. But yeah, reading between the lines, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, nothing was said that day. There was a discussion on when we said the 0.5% there, how that would be defined on how it could be spent, and I think that's going to be dealt at the next level of finance. But we just said economic development.
so what'll happen then is your proposal will move on the 0.5%. And this proposal is gonna come in, and when it comes down to discussion, well, we can use economic development funds from the 0.5% to
Potentially fund that.
To fund it.
Fund
I mean, that hasn't been said to me, but I wouldn't be perfect to it, you know.
The numbers are too close together to say, think about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's money in the fund balance to do it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I don't think there's any coordination on the part of Board of Supervisors to make this happen this way.
Right.
What you've done with your economic development hasn't been a discussion with Steve and what he needs or anything else.
Korsak was there at that meeting there that we had. Steve wasn't there at that one. So I mean, his office certainly is aware of what we approved through our committee.
All right, well, it's a good
All right.
start.
All right, so,
Has anything been mentioned or discussed on how we will pursue obtaining this? You know, we talked about, I suggested getting a headhunter. In other words, how are we gonna get this person? And should that be, or maybe it shouldn't be part of what we do with the county, but at least for us, we need to determine if we want to spend money for a headhunter, or if we wanna, you could put a few ads in the paper. I didn't do it last time.
That didn't do anything.
maybe the guy from Los Angeles will change his mind.
I think that's the guy, I like that guy.
It's summertime now.
Well, you did have responses, but they were looking for a lot more than what we were.
Yeah, they were like CEOs, because I put that chief executive officer title in there, that was.
They didn't even see that down.
Yeah.
No.
It was just some, employment firm.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, here's a lead, are you interested?
Yeah.
Or going out there and investigating before the person even knew what was going on.
Yeah, well, I think there are some websites that focus on precisely this kind of job. The IEDC is one of them. And, but a headhunter may not be a bad idea, just to,
I think Joe Scott said he'd look around and that's within his realm, who's out there and would be available to do that type of thing.
and I think we probably should use our own resources to do that, rather than expect the county to.
Yeah.
Right.
So besides these other 3 points, the first 3, plus all that will be discussed, but are we at a point where between the money and the year minimum, the collaboration, that in general, at least it's okay to start presenting?
Yeah, to refine, starting to refine it, yeah.
Steve,
But we're not giving final approval by any means, but, conceptually.
right.
I
So
think-
what he would like to do, Steve, would take it that Friday morning meeting, I think it's economic development committee at 8 o'clock before the regular board meeting. Just in that committee to start presenting it. And nothing's happening in May except for that.
Okay.
And then in June, board members, county board members have started to have a chance to know about it and digest this. Then it would go to, again, the economic development finance, but that would be a June thing. And presumably in June, we may pass those 2 key committees, the real board, the whole board, would then get together. So I guess what I'm saying, if I mentioned to Steve these 3 points, that he get at least presented to, that we agree in concept. Do it. If we don't, we don't. If you don't, then he'll have the whole back. But
I think sure we should do that.
Are you comfortable with that? With the suggestions we've made of having them proceed to kind of.
I think it's fine to continue the conversation. I'm not in favor of the blueprint though that we got, no. But I'm one vote.
Well, in terms of what this document is,
Right, I think there's specifics in the document that I wouldn't be comfortable saying yes to.
well, maybe the only way that the money is going to be approved.
Right,
well, I think it's open to discussion a little bit, but,
Yeah.
but I don't know how much. Certainly it's a document, a draft.
So what things are you, let's put them out there as questions then.
sure, so the first part would be the actual earmark for the salary, right? Which is, to me, control of the funds. The second part, the third bullet point says a key part of the full-time IDA executive director duties will be grant management. So, I don't know, we haven't really done that in the past. And again, this is part of my heartburn with,
We have done that.
We've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had quite a few grants that we were managing, micro loans for businesses and that type of thing. The money dried up.
Right.
So it's the competition with other entities that are doing the same thing within the county for me. It's like, how does, if this is a key part of this job, that tells me that you're competing with other entities potentially for the same funds.
Well, I think as we discussed, it needs to be in coordination with SEEK. So that's within our control. Somehow we're going to need to identify to the county that we have done this, right?
Yeah.
So we can't allow, this person just to come in and sit and do some activities and not do grant writing. And let SEEK do it all, and they'll come back and look at this and said, okay, what have you done for grant writing?
That's a good point. That's actually part of the things that I've been thinking about too, is like, what is the workload for a full-time person? Right? We don't have a lot of development projects going on in the county. If we had 4 different projects on the meeting we had to talk about, that would be a lift for a person and a half or 2 people. Right? If we had 2 projects that we were talking about, pilot schedules and approvals and public meetings and things for, that would be a lift for a person.
Just guessing here. Some of the supervisors, particularly our supervisor, so here, is aware of the need for a lot of money for infrastructure.
Mhm.
So if that's one of the things that your committee is thinking about, I think that's a good idea. On the other hand, I'm not sure if Shane Nickel and planning do a lot of work there. But water and sewer infrastructure is really important. And there are some big bucks out there in the Economic Development Administration. So, I mean, that could be something that could occupy an IDA director almost full time.
That's one area they mentioned, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you did, I mean, one of the areas they mentioned is to get more involved, is like, I'm involved with, I was for months, a year now with their issue.
Yeah.
And I really don't go into it because I don't have time.
Yeah.
To do that. And I think that's one of the things they see over there. Like, we're kind of on the periphery because there's just no time left to do it. But the second issue is, I do think you can fill it. I mean, there's a dark project at times, but I do think you can fill it if you wanted to. I mean, if somebody's going to actually pursue site development, and besides these things that come up, there's you need capacity to do so. I mean, you just don't. You got to make the time to do it, or have the time. In that sense. And then there's other meetings. There's not a lot of projects, but I can't tell you how many meetings I go to. It won't work out.
Yeah. So,
Well, I know, like for the town of Richmond right now, we've contracted with Lamont, and we're doing a study on trying to provide wastewater for Hamlet, Warrenville. Again, just like you said, there's a lot of money out there, and we hope to be out there late summer or early fall here to try to secure some of these grants so that we can put that in there. Yeah.
there's,
If you had some language in the MOU when it comes to this sort of grant seeking, is I think what's bothering both you and
partly.
and the grant management. If you would introduce language there to say that to be mutually agreed upon with the other Schoharie County economic partners,
Mhm.
which would then kind of force a continuing dialogue. If it goes unmentioned, a reasonable deduction would be, I'm supposed to raise $10 million in economic development funds.
Yeah.
And Julie Piketty's already got her hands on 5 million, so I've got to, somehow undermine that in order to achieve my quota. So I think if we did have language in there that kind of directs it towards collaboration, constant collaboration, you may begin to mitigate the problem.
Don't people in the county also solicit grants for economic development?
Sure.
So,
you
to
know,
your point,
yeah,
that is to your point.
There's the constant competition with the consolidated funding application.
Right.
And so on
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
forth.
yeah.
So,
You know, the other piece for me is I'd like to see the money, right? There's an issue with like ensuring that the money's spent in the public interest, right? And the idea to use the money in public interest. But there's a fine line between collaboration and control. And when you read these agreements, how much is the county going to be involved in what is actually happening at the IDA? If you read, the job description is not an IDA job description. This came from the county.
It came from me first.
This is your job description. There's a lot of discussion about how various people and departments within the county interact with the person sitting in the seat.
Is that always the case?
And so there's, how much, we had this discussion when we talked about the per megawatt charge, right? This is a little bit, for me, feels like a little bit like that. How much is there between influence, control, and collaboration going on in these agreements? As opposed to earmarking money and ensuring that the IDA has the ability to do what the IDA is supposed to do. So it's not just that there is public, I have heartburn about the public-private competition for sure. And if I'm
Well,
looking down the
sometimes
road,
what IDA could do, we're seeking that same organization. I mean, that's what it is. And so if you don't collaborate, you want to step on each other's toes
that's
easily.
right, and that's the part I'm seeing in 3 to 5 years is where does this go in 3 to 5 years, right? How do
If you
you?
don't have collaboration, you're just gonna be fighting with each other.
That's my heartburn from a
But that's gonna exist, I
public-private.
mean, from our, well, I don't know, I guess, I don't wanna make it too simple, I guess from my perspective, it's like, the IDA needs to be strengthened. And it's authorship. We won't be around 10 years from now if we keep going the way we're going. We need money. We need, or projects to get money, obtain money.
I don't disagree that there needs to be a funding mechanism, but how the funding mechanism is put in place and what the trade-offs are for things that I have the concerns with. And when I read these things, I may be skeptical, right? I mean, I try to be realistic, not optimistic or pessimistic about the agreements, but when I read them and I think about where this can lead in 3 to 5 years, that's where I have concerns. I'm one voice. If you guys are more comfortable with it, you guys have more experience dealing with these things than I probably do.
Well, I think you're on to a very important point here. And whether that's to sell this to the Board of Supervisors exclusively or not, I don't know. But, certainly in the very second bullet point, it says, work closely with Schoharie Economic Enterprise Corporation and the Schoharie County Administrator of various county departments to offer the best chance of success for projects that will positively enhance the county.
I underlined that. So
Okay, well,
that's part of my concern.
let's talk about this. Does Julie do that now?
She will occasionally go over at the request of the Board of Supervisors or the Economic Development Committee. Leo oftentimes asked her to come in and report on what's going on with the Route 7 corridor study. But he never said, what other kinds of things are you
Right. So
looking for?
if there's coordination between IDA, which really has the only
jurisdiction over giving pilots, right? Whatever you do, you're not gonna do anything unless you can get a pilot, so you gotta come to IDA. So as a function responsibility, we do that.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what we do beyond that, we've always had grants ever since I've been here, and we've administered grants. Sometimes they were funded by a federal government, right, Ron? Some of them,
State or federal.
state or federal, and we administered those grants. But if SEEK and IDA, the IDA director work in coordination with one another, the IDA director is gonna have a direct link into those areas within the county. Point two. So there'd be more coordination, that Julie would be aware of everything that's being said on the county level. She wouldn't have to be waiting for somebody to come in, call me in and tell me, brief me on something.
Well, of course, we actually don't want Julie to be doing that.
Right,
But
but
if we have a criticism of Julie, it's, she chases public funds a little bit more often than we are happy with. You know, it's a big trough of money, so it's hard to resist doing it. But it's sort of, looking at the private sector sources of funding, where you don't have to be dependent upon the public providing you with the funds. I think here, as Ben has pointed out, it's not so much the sources of funding here, it is almost the requirement that you've got to check with the county before you do so. Now, they may not quite intend it that way, but then they have to rewrite it.
She's also not beholden to her salary coming from the organization she's.
right,
So to me, it's like, talk about ABO potential, or ABO conflicts, like I think some of the stuff steers there too, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm just looking at I'm looking at the 3 to 5 year picture, right? I think, sure, the honeymoon period's gonna be great, everybody's gonna be great, but once we get through the honeymoon,
Yeah.
we gotta be married. What is-
now, in point number 2, under strengthen the IDA, let's say, the director is gonna participate more actively and specifically indicate SEEK. So in a way, the document addresses that, everything we've been talking about, not in a unique way that we're thinking, but it does say more actively.
Well, I guess another way to go at this, Chet, is to say, the purpose is to strengthen the IDA as a potential force in economic development. Why don't you just strengthen the IDA? Provide the IDA with 150,000.
Give us this piece of the
You know,
sales
yeah,
tax, let's go that route.
And let the professionals that work for IDA, especially IDA, carry out their task without having to consult with everybody all the time, Because I think that's what, this is I think maybe the nature of the beast is that you'll have, there's the possibility the county will say, we don't really like that development there because it doesn't do anything for the southern part of the county, so do something for the southern part of the county. That's just, so there's the possibility of kind of political intrusion into things. So the less said about these kinds of things as requirements, I think the better.
I don't know. I'm not as concerned about that as Ben and Peter is. I think as you say, the document says work closely. In the case of, I remember with the Sharon Springs Inc. I mean, we were in constant touch with the village and Sandy Manco at the town with respect to, you guys, how are you guys hot to track for this? Are you guys, and we did, and then we prepared the pilot. Same thing with Walmart when we did the extension. That was something that we really had to work very closely with the people from the county, Sandy and the people from the county to make sure that, hey, you guys are okay with this, right? I mean, this is part of what we did in the past. So, I mean, unless I'm missing something, I think working closely and checking with doesn't bother me. You know,
Well, we've got
You gotta come to
2 to
Well,
2
that's-
here, so, yeah, Wanda, what do you think?
I think we've always worked well together on those. I mean, it's just kind of our nature and it happens. I think that if the county gives us so much money, I think that we have to look at maybe making up that difference to get somebody that is suitable for that position. I don't know. I think you get what you pay for. And, I think that we have enough in our funds that we could supplement that a little bit to get the proper person in there. I feel good with it.
We try to put something in there about maintain your autonomy or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've always worked well with municipalities and whoever has to. As Joe had said, we always did. We always have.
You know, whether it was Tom or Ted or whoever, it's always, I've always been asked, what did the town think?
Yeah.
You know, whatever, so it's kind of
We've
been
always
our
looked at
mantra.
that.
Some ideas don't bother with that, we try to do it, I shouldn't say
Yeah.
success, but
Well,
we try to get their opinion.
Yeah, there's I think a difference between working with a municipality and reporting to a municipality.
Yeah.
And I think that's, or reporting to a government agency.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to do. And Ron, or Ben may be right. The ABO might say, no, we won't approve this kind of thing. Who knows?
So are there other IDAs funded by counties that have these types of agreements, or it's just, we're gonna fund our IDA and this is how we're gonna do it? And that's it?
Well, again, the word funding, at my committee meeting, certainly, we were just gonna support economic development. That's all,
Perfect.
that's all that said at that meeting.
And so,
I don't know how that's gonna develop going to the next committee and then to the full board.
and so why do we need to go beyond that? Why do we need to have a document that specifically states all of this and a job description that specifically states all of this in order to get funding?
I mean, there was a question asked, well, what do we mean by supporting the idea, supporting economic development? There was a question, and that was never really dealt with in detail there. But that was a question by one of the members. What do we mean by supporting the idea? Because we would have created a new line, I guess, within the budget to accommodate this. But yeah, that's as far as it went that day.
I think your point is a good one. Why does this full-time responsibilities have to be part of the deal with the county? I mean, this is what the full-time responsibilities are, and it's in, right? So
Are they? I mean, I don't know if I would, is this your current job description? Like when you were hired, is this the job description?
I like what it's become.
again, Ron?
That's what it's become.
That's that's what it is.
I mean, to a point, I mean, I can't say, I touch upon all of these. I mean, you can't do all of them all the time, but most of it's been done. There's probably a couple in here that are extra, or not, enhanced.
That's just because of the circumstances.
Right.
Right. But I mean, why do we need this as part of the, like, to your point, why do we need this as part of the agreement?
I'm not sure we need the first page as part of the agreement either. I think it has to be, you're supporting the mission of the IDA, here's the mission of the IDA.
So you don't think that in passing this, and some of the supervisors are gonna ask the question, well, what are we getting in return for our investment or funding of the IDA?
You're funding the mission of the IDA, here's the IDA's website with their mission statement, and
But this could be background. In other words, this doesn't have to be part of the agreement.
This is not, this
So
is not.
we need to hire an executive director. Well, what does the executive director do? Well, here it is. I mean, I think that could be part of, but it doesn't have to be part of the agreement with the county. This is information that, as you say, Chet, that they might ask, well, what does it mean? What do we do?
The MOU will be more specific.
If this, the reason why I said earlier that conceptually I really like this is that if you're providing operating funds for a period of time that would enable the IDA to use it to grow its balance sheet, so that maybe sometime in the future it becomes independent and able to support itself. This is taking a step in that direction. What we want to bleed out of this is any other things that are looking for immediate returns in terms of economic development, where our continued funding at this level, which is really a modest level. This is, not tons of money that they're providing. It's certainly generous, and we're not going to bite the hand that feeds us here. But the autonomy and independence of the IDA has to be first and foremost to enable it to do its job. So if the committee can begin to work on that, to limit the kind of working with, consulting, interfacing, all that kind of stuff, I think everybody's better off.
It's true. But they're not funding us at all now.
Right.
And to me, I don't think much is going to change if we are, in terms of operation, if they do give us this money. It's just that if they give us this money at some point, when they come back and review to see if they're going to do it again, we might ask some questions as to, okay, what did our funding result in?
Yeah.
And either yes or yay or nay, and if it didn't, well, we gave them this funding to do improve economic development, and we don't see any results. So it would behoove the person that comes into this to certainly work with Julie, and at least could say, we participated with SEEK, and we brought in whatever it is. So therefore, and it was because of this person bringing their expertise to help Julie bring it in, right? Because if it ends up being right what it is now, there's not going to be a lot of activity. We just sat back and we're waiting for pilots to come in. And Sarah is doing a little bit of grant writing, going out there and getting things to fund, the healthy patrons at the fair and that nickel and dime stuff.
Right.
Which amounts to nothing. So this person is going to have to work with Julie in order to say this is what we've done.
I
So
agree with that.
I don't see it as a real issue. Certainly the county is going to want to see some accountability for what we've done.
And they should ask for some results if they're putting that much money in.
So I think it really depends upon what we do as a board and what we expect the executive director to do.
There will come a time where what the IDA wants to do will be in opposition of what the funding source will want to do, what the county will want to do. And
That's already happened with solar.
there's going,
Solar's right.
the 20,000 megawatt could have went different. We could have had a different take on how we wanted to handle that. It would have been a much harder conversation. There's going to be a time when that conversation happens. And how far does the collaboration and working with and so on and cooperation and so on and so forth go? Rather than earmarking in the budget.
The same would hold true if we got into an agreement with SEEK, where down the line, it would be crossing the line, right, in terms of what our activity was, going public to private. to the same degree. Right? And right now, I think the ABO is taking a more serious look at those agreements because of what's happened. So I'm not sure, getting into that marriage is going to be as helpful in the end as having it the way it is now and forcing this person to actually do more coordination with the
I think the counties in New York State that are most serious about economic development are the ones that actually put money into economic development. And by that I mean serious amounts of money. Now, they may have run into problems in Orange County and Saratoga County, but look at the result. The result has been sensational growth in Saratoga County. And it may have gotten mixed up between the private sector and the public sector. The problem here in Sawyer County is there's not enough money being put into economic development. And what we really have to begin doing, and this is going to take a period of time to do, is to provide the resources to the IDA to enable it to function at a higher level without any restraint from the public sector. In other words, this is your job, here's the money, go and do it. And I think that's what we're looking for.
I think even in those counties, there would be some accountability given those funds, right?
In Saratoga County, that wasn't the case because it was a totally private sector operation.
And the private sector success was vastly superior to what the public sector was able to do. And that's why they are where they are now.
Now, certainly, public funds were directed towards things that the private sector said, if you want to develop things here, if you want to attract big businesses, if you want to think into the future, you're going to have to do things like build roads and build infrastructure and all of the kinds of things that led Global Foundries to say, yes, Saratoga County is the place I want to be.
How much, it's interesting if you think about it, how much do they have with the funding, would the county be able to come in and say, well, how did the IDA do this year? The IDA's mission, right, is to deal with the things that come in front of them. I don't know how much of the economic development side of things the IDA has done to date. I don't know how much of that they're expected to do going forward. But, the IDA is approving taxes, abatement and incentives and things like that. There's only so much of that you can control in terms of how much you do, right? You have to have the projects.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a project.
So if you don't have the projects, the IDA needs to be funded in order to be here for those incentive opportunities. But
As I said, we're going to have to do something more than what we're doing now to justify that continued support. And it's going to be doing a lot more in terms of coordination because we can't do it on our own. Right? Anything, this person is going to learn a lot from Julie and Ron, just to come up to speed.
Well,
I think there's money out there, and certainly there could be discussion, why Ron and Julie would ever sit down and compete for the same money
Hope not.
would be, foolhardy. So there's certain avenues that would be open to IDA to go seek money that Julie might not have, right? And it's obviously she can pursue some of the other avenues. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of competition.
there may not.
And I don't see the county coming in and putting a heavy hand on IDA and expecting what we're doing. I mean, they're talking about just strengthening IDA and putting some money into it.
Well, why don't I just say, if we can, I mean, it's up to you guys. Agree with the concept. Or run it by Steve, see what his opinion is. Maybe there needs to be another meeting or two, obviously. And then when it gets down to the MOU is where it really hits the road, so to speak. And that's where it can be scrutinized, more.
Yeah.
But as long as we have the concept okay, we can keep moving forward over the next 5 weeks. And whether it takes 1 meeting or 4 meetings, in that time frame, so be it.
Yeah, if this isn't done until July instead of June, I don't have a problem with that. Especially,
If we want to address it, not all of it, at least most of them.
and certainly there's general agreement, I think, that the idea of Schoharie County providing more resources to the IDA is a good idea. But as Jim Becker said at our meeting with Alicia, Bill Federese, and Steve Wilson, we gotta look very carefully at the strings that might be attached to the idea, because it could hamper rather than enhance what the idea does. So I think that's what Ben and I are saying, is that little, openings or ambiguous language could be dangerous for both the county and the idea. So we just want to make sure that those things are favorable to the IDA rather than detrimental.
That's part of the MOU, where you have to be careful.
Yeah. The devil.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I remember Barbara Conaway, the congressman, Republican congressman, was the head of the World Bank. He was a great guy. He was on a board with him. And he would always say, Peter, the devil is in the details. And the details is going to be the MOU. So we got to make sure that is something that is scrutinized very carefully.
Can we at least go forward with approval of the concept as a board?
Yes.
I'm all right.
Do we need a motion and
I think it'd be a good idea.
at least show our support?
I'll
Motion,
make them up.
and then a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion is passed.
All right. Among other things, it was just a very good discussion.
My glasses keep fogging up.
Yeah.
That's how good the discussion was.
Yeah, right, I'm thinking too much.
New business, the auditor, did we address that?
Yes, in the audit committee, but just to throw, I know this is confusing when we throw in the audit committee at the same place, but
So the audit
we're all the same
committee is
people, so it's kind of,
recommending to the full
Oh, that's
board.
right.
So there's a motion before us to accept the auditor.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. As we're retaining the same auditor. Number 8, American Recycling.
not much here, just a quick update, the draft closing documents, drafts and such, have been created by Joe in his office, and then been sent to us and American Recycling just 2 days ago. So that's where we're at. American Recycling folks have them along with their attorney, and I'm starting to look at them. With Joe, so it's one step closer.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right?
As long as we keep moving, we're good.
Great.
There's still hope for a closing before year end.
We're hoping, yeah. Yeah, I thought maybe by now there'd be a little more action, but only because I know the bank financing was probably wanting to see us involved. It could be any time now. I haven't talked to Dominic in a week, but
Usually they close these things at the same time as they close the loans.
yeah, I think very much has something to do with it. Plus they ordered the building that they got approved for. They haven't ordered it because they want sales tax, part of the benefits.
Yeah.
A lot of work going down in a cider site mitigation and
Yeah.
all that type of stuff. All right, set the date for the next. Oh, yes, let's talk about that.
Briefly.
Yes. When we approved Ron's salary from here on out to take care of retroactive payment, we made an error in how much we were going to pay per month, and Ron has gone back and taken a look at that. And what did you explain?
Yeah, I mean, it went from, I basically had it figured out in 8 months, and when we did it, it went up to 9 months, and my math didn't calculate in my head. Anyway, it went down from the 4266 to 4 even. So it actually went down for that length of time, just a little bit, but it was down lower. So just to be more efficient, just to make it documented in the minutes. I propose it to go down to 4, or to be at 4, instead of the 4266.
Okay. So should we just have a little motion to,
Yeah. Amend what we'd done before. Have a motion to do that?
So,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thanks, I almost forgot that wrong. Date for the next meeting.
I don't know yet, because of this, I mean, I don't wanna call it successive meetings for no reason. I think what I'll do is I'll get ahold of Steve, Steve, and, if we have to have a meeting, Peter's with me or whoever, chat, maybe both of us, all at once. Ben versus whoever wants to join in. I guess see where it goes. I mean, the county board doesn't meet until the 3rd Friday of June. And that previous week, obviously, committee meeting.
17th.
What is the 3rd Friday, Joe?
17th is the 3rd Friday in June.
So, would there be any need for us to meet before that?
I don't think so. I mean, let's leave it open, I guess, for me to call, see what happens with Steve.
yeah,
So maybe, like
It would be, I'm gone the last 2 weeks of June.
you're gone the last 2 weeks.
I'm trying to be.
so,
So maybe
I'll
July
be
then?
available by phone.
No, dare. July.
First week in July is July 4th.
Wednesday is the 6th.
I mean, then we do have, I think, an annual at that point.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's at the end of, close to the end of the fiscal year, then we may have to do stuff there.
yeah, so the project, depending if anybody's going away, we're all around. You think that may go away that week? I don't know. Which summer week, the week of July 4th, or remember that first week? When's the first day of July?
Friday.
Friday, so yeah, so I guess it would be the next week, Monday's the 4th.
So maybe Wednesday the
6th.
Very many.
Maybe we can do it tentatively. And they have to come in from Cooperstown off the boat.
Ooh.
or we can come out to you.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
a
Wi-Fi
great,
here.
great
Will you
idea.
go ashore to pick us up?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Sometime we should have it a little bit later in the day.
So,
All right.
So July 6th at 9:30.
July 6th at 9:30.
Okay.
All right,
Motion for adjournment?
I will do that. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
All right, very good, guys.
Okay.
Nice talking to you, Wanda.
Take care, Wanda.
Enjoy the nice weather
We'll
there.
see you in a couple days, you're packing?
Oh, you're coming back.
14th.
see you up there,
All right,
but I know.
bye.
All right, gentlemen, I've gotta go see my 100-year-old mother.
You'll set you straight.
She's, until last year, she was not here.
You need things signed?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So I'm gonna call. See you
Nice seeing
later.
you.
See you guys.
Son, take care, Ben. I'll give you a call later.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good. See you guys.
You bet. But 100 is rich. I don't want to live to be.
A friend of mine's mother is 108 years old, and she is in pretty good shape. And he and his siblings joked around and says, you know what? We may have to amend our wills to provide for her. Which I thought was hilarious.
You know what they're saying? That people are gonna live to be 150 years old.
Yeah.
God. Yep.
Yeah, they'll have to work until they're 110.
That's right.
Some of them will. Anyway.
So-
Imagine
Small social security age.
Can you imagine working for 90 years?
Oh, God.
Now,
All right,
that-
gentlemen.
that presents a problem, and in Italy, they already encountered that.
Or,
Oh.
Yeah.
There,
There she
my
slept.
third cousin quit his job in order for his son
I don't know how to do
to come in and replace him. So it's almost automatic retirement in order for the next person to get in and fill a
The old
position.
union jobs. You know,
Yeah.
You know, it would be the same thing here.
Take care.
All right. Good to see you.